Right, okay, and welcome to episode 37 of the Freedom Hustlers podcast with me, John Banks, from the SidingCommand.com and Andy Lehman from freedomskillsacademy.com. So, Andy, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Glorious weather we're having. Yesterday was my Christmas day. I'm trying to catch up with
the middle of June. Good.
Yeah, make up for missing it because of lockdown and because of Father's Day and birthdays. We decided to do it in June, and it was fantastic. We're outside in the sunshine in the garden.
Like put the Christmas tree up, everything.
Yep. Christmas tree up, decorations. We had crackers. Fortunately, we bought some crackers. We had the idea in January, so we got the crackers because you can't buy them now. We had Christmas pudding. The family, they had proper gravy chicken dinner. Don't do turkey, they did chicken, and I did a big veggie pie with gravy. So it was the full works. Absolutely stuffed at the end of the evening.
Well, that is a rule of Christmas, isn't it?
It is. How are you doing anyway?
Yeah, fine. Absolutely fine. No Christmases. Been watching the football, a couple of games every now and again.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's been good. So tonight's discussion is all about, we're going to be talking about pricing. Doesn't sound that important or interesting, but I think it is both important and interesting. And so it's sort of pricing products and the kind of psychology around it, and perhaps some little tips for people that are thinking of launching their own products soon as to kind of where you could sit within the sort of pricing, the sort of margins. Do you go for the low ball or, do you go for the sort of higher ticket stuff? And obviously a lot of it depends on what it is you're selling and
Yep.
the sort of impact, if you like, that it can have on people's lives. So, we're going to be talking a bit about that. So, I don't know if you want to kind of kick off.
Right. There's quite a lot to discuss, really, when it comes to pricing. By the end of this podcast, you might have a bit of clarity or you might even be even more confused because, there's quite a lot to take in. It's like you said, pricing can be determined by the actual product itself. So, for example, if you're buying a DVD, which is just an action film, say it's Marvel, you buy the DVD, which you can't buy these days, or you stream it, you're going to be paying probably no more than sort of 15 quid because it's just a bit of entertainment, a bit of titillation. However, if you're selling a product which is transformational, so for example, imagine that you're working 48 hours a week, 9 till 5, and you want to change that, and you've got a product which basically could take them out of that job and basically replace their wage with something that only takes 20 hours, that product itself is going to be worth a lot more than just 15 quid. You can decide to sell it at that if you wish, but the value of the product it's worth is worth a lot more than the actual printing or the product itself because you're going to get more out of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so you're talking about stuff like information products or, some of the fields that we talk about here on the podcast, things like digital products, such as courses, ebooks, PDF guides, whatever you want to call it. But those sort of things. If they are, if they can, transform somebody's life in a way of such as, either financially maybe or physically in terms of like, a fitness product or perhaps like even like we've talked briefly about stuff like deck plans and plans and designs and that will just save people a lot of time and obviously time is a really important thing to a lot of people. So if you can save people a month or a week or several hours per day, then again that's worth quite a bit of money in some people's eyes. So and then there's the question, where do you kind of price stuff? And I don't know really what the answer is really. Because like you say, a lot of stuff, I think, especially if you're starting out. So let's say you're starting out, you've never launched anything before. Like if we go back to that product, I think I talked about it last week, or it might have been the last podcast or the one before that, when I talked about the first product I ever made, which was a little tiny infographic course. And I'd never released anything before. And it was like 4 videos. And all it done really was speed up people's, how to make them and show people how to make them. And then at the time, they were really big on social media. So it kind of got people some traffic and that sort of thing. So it ticked a few boxes, but it wasn't really groundbreaking. I couldn't really charge like $500 or anything like that. So I priced it really low. And I priced it really low for two reasons. One, because I was new to the scene. So no one knew who I was. A lot of marketers now, I think, like you say, once they build up a reputation, they can. We're going to talk a little bit about this later because I know you know a guy that sells ebooks. But once they kind of build up a bit of a reputation, they can probably charge whatever they want to a degree, obviously. But I didn't have any kind of background or nothing like that in that particular field. So I think I priced it really low. It may have even been under $10. I think it was about $7, maybe even $9, something like that. But it sold loads and it done okay. And then you can kind of, if you want, that's kind of a stepping stone then, or a sort of, like a platform to kind of push on a bit.
I think you're basically right in many ways as well. Like you say, there's so many different ways of sort of pricing a product. If you're brand new to the market, if you've got no sort of proof and no testimonials, then you've obviously got to price accordingly. Because Bob Proctor, for example, he's been around for years. He can probably sell a seminar now for several $1,000s. People know he is. But if you just come out of the woodwork and try and do a Science of Getting Rich seminar for like $3-4 grand, people don't know who you are. They've never heard of you. You've got to do a heck of a lot of convincing, which is another aspect of pricing we'll talk about more in a minute. But you've got to try and convince them that your product is worth it. And if they don't know who you are, then, this is in every form of industry. It's not just information products or books or ebooks or videos or anything like that. If you're a brand new joiner, a brand new lawyer, sometimes you price cheaper just to get yourself a foot in the door. Like you say, if your book was your course was like $10, you were selling that and you sold that book because people didn't know you. It fell into that what I often call like the bliss spot. When food manufacturers, they make sauces, cakes or biscuits, they have a bliss spot, which is where the product is it's not too bitter and it's not too sweet, and it's appreciated by the majority of the population. If you take it too sweet, you start to lose numbers. You get too bitter, you start to lose numbers. It's just in that sweet spot where you can get the maximum amount of people. And I think sometimes there is a price for that for specific products, but also for the for people who are in the beginning. So if you're pricing something, say between sort of 99 cents to $20, 20 quid, then I think you're in that bliss spot where people are willing to take a chance. They're willing to spend their money on you because it's not a lot to lose. If it turns out that your product is actual rubbish, they don't feel ripped off. Whereas if you was to sell them a 30-page PDF and charge them like 97 quid for it, and it was a bag of crap, to put it nicely, they would probably feel miffed because they spent £97. But if you were to charge £9.99, then it's not such a loss.
And I think stuff like that, like you say, 9 quid, £10, $10, whichever way you want to look at it, that's a fair price for almost anything. I mean, if you a simple cheat sheet, a PDF guide, even if it's going to just make someone just, that's how I do it. Do you know what I mean? And then maybe they only use it once and then they know and they don't need to refer to it again. Still, $10 is fair, and that's fine. $10 for a simple PDF, anything like that, anything under $10, absolutely fine, I think, for that. I mean, going back to like cheap or what we call cheap or low end, there could also be a number of other reasons to do it, can't there? I mean, we've also talked, I think we've talked about it before, but I just want to touch on a couple of points. Number one, why are you pricing the way you are? Is it for money, or is it, for example, like building an email list? If you're building an email list, I don't really think you care that much about, making thousands and thousands on the front end. You might just be literally trying to get rid of the tire kickers and trying to get rid of the people that are looking for freebies and everything like that, who just sign up for your list, they get the free offer, then they're never going to interact with anything ever again. Or do you put something on the front end for like $5 or something like that, a real good, simple, nice report that's going to help people out, and that if they pay for that, at least they're a bit interested, and at least they've got more of a chance then of possibly buying stuff later on, or possibly interacting with your blog post, or sharing some of the stuff, or resonating with what you have to say further on down the line. So then all of a sudden you build an email list of people that have bought stuff, which I'd imagine is a lot more, we know is a lot more powerful than having a list of thousands of people that are never ever going to interact or even open the email in the first place. I think we call it tripwires.
Yeah, and the the other thing as well is that, as you say, you could be building an email list, but you could sell it short, sell it cheap, because you need testimonials. Testimonials is a big thing, but yeah, I mean, it's just gone completely blank there. I was going to say something, but basically, like you say, if you're building an email list, you are planning for the future, and so you're selling something off cheap. And the other thing is that it's come back to me now. The other thing as well is that if you're selling something off cheap, the power of over delivery is incredible. So there's too many people who are trying to, we've all seen it. You and I know it. We've been in the industry. I've worked for several companies who they try and get the most money out of a certain product based on the transformational idea. This can do this much, so we'll charge $2,000 for it. But if you were to charge $2,000 for something that's only worth like several £700, it's disappointing. But if you were to sell something for £700, $700, which is actually worth $2,000, if you over deliver, what does that do to a person? Because everybody loves, not only just love a bargain, but they love to get as much for the money as possible. Yeah. And if you give them something for, if I say for a couple $100, and you over deliver, and they look at that and they think, well, you've just helped me make an extra $2,000, or whatever. You've saved me several hours a week, and I know that over the year that's going to be so powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
over deliver that. They're going to be like a customer for life.
And that can have that effect, can't it? Yeah. Another thing, I mean, just going back again, like perhaps going back a little bit to like more sort of physical products. I mean, I know I touched upon just now, if you wanted to price it cheap in order to build, say, an email list, another reason, you might price the way you do, not in terms of making as much money as you can, but although initially it might not feel like that, but longer term it could. For example, things like Amazon Kindle and Amazon merch. Okay, merch is the sort of t-shirts and hoodies and that sort of thing. And Amazon Kindle, obviously, we've talked about loads of times. Books, KDP, that sort of stuff. You might want to price quite low in order to boost up the rankings. So if you price it low and therefore you get more buyers, I mean, we're only talking a couple of dollars, but that can make a difference. People are funny. Some people will just buy the 99p Kindle books, or some people their budget will be $2.99 and that's it. And the same goes for like t-shirts. The difference between $19.99 and say $13.99 could be a lot to a lot of people. So they're not going to spend $13. They won't entertain $20 on a t-shirt, but $12, $13, yeah, okay, we'll buy that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, rather than selling, I don't know, 10 a month, you might sell 50 a month. Okay. So you're going to make a little bit more money, but more importantly, that product, whatever it is, the book, the t-shirt, I don't know, the mug, anything like that, that product we all know how the Amazon model works. Okay. If it sells more, it's going to be up higher in the rankings. Therefore, the next person to come along and search for, I don't know, cute unicorn t-shirt, whatever, that your design is going to be higher up than, some of the more expensive ones that haven't made as many sales. So, and that is a snowball. So then it starts, then you're kind of, the snowball effect starts. Once you find yourself in, top 100s, for example, of specific categories, again, you'll be shown more. So therefore, that's another way of looking at it. Do you know what I mean?
There's two things that you've just sort of stimulated there in my head. That you said about people being funny. They'd rather pay £13.99 as opposed to £20. I've not been told this for definite, but I've often wondered why internet marketing prices are, instead of £49, they're 47 or 97.
Yeah, the 7.
And I reckon it's a psychological thing, because if you said it was £99, that's close to 100. £97 sounds like it's closer to £90, even though it's not. It's actually closer to £100. That £2 difference is it just, people think they're spending £100. But if it's 97, it's like, oh, we're not fully paying £100. It's such a bizarre way, and I've never really been told for definite why, but I've often thought about this, and I'm sure that's it. Just if you do something at 19.99, it's £20, but at £19.97, it's not quite £20, and it has that powerful effect. And I do believe 2 or 3 pence, £2 or £3 off the price, people in their heads convince themselves they're not spending as much as they think they're spending. And so, like I say, buying people are actually very strange. Going back to Kindle, to Amazon, like you say, charging lower prices so they can get further up the rankings. The other thing to consider as well, especially for Kindle ebooks, not necessarily for the merch, but with things like fiction, going back to the idea that you're just paying for titillation and entertainment, not for transformation, you also got the opportunity of hitting more people. So compared to, say, like a book, which is a niche specific non-fiction book, there's probably only a couple of thousand people who might be interested in that. But when it comes to like a crime drama, there could be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people interested in that. So if you price it lower, so you're pricing it to the market, so then you are getting the opportunity of selling it to more people. And because it's digital, there's no major processing, manufacturing,
no overheads, nothing's done, isn't it? Yeah.
No. So that's another form of pricing. I've seen that people who write both fiction stories and non-fiction stories. So there's a writer who writes crime stories, but he also writes for writers. He prices his non-fiction books more expensive because he knows that there's not so many people willing to buy it. But his fiction books, he was selling them at sort of $1.99. And I think it was actually John Locke, Locke.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the first self-published authors to sell 1 million copies on Amazon Kindle, and he sold them low. And that was his reason, is that because anybody can read a fiction story, a grandma, a child, anybody, if they're interested in crime, they'll read it. But not everybody wants to read about how to be a writer. So
that's a bit more niche, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of like a supply and demand thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But then that also brings. Sorry.
You go.
I was going to say that brings me around to another thing with supply and demand, and that is sometimes supply and demand, which can determine price, but then you can also control the supply and demand. And by not selling so many, like John Locke wanted to sell thousands of copies of his book at $1.99, if you made them so there was only like 1,000 copies, then the exclusiveness of the product. Now, again, you need to have a following and you need to be sort of a name. So, for example, what's his name? Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails.
That's it. Yeah.
He was giving lots of his free music away, giving a lot of his music away free via his website and whatnot. And then one day he created, I think it was only 3,000 copies of a special pack. So his music was on vinyl. He had a couple of books. And he sold them for, I think it was like $200-300 per piece. But because they were exclusive and he had hundreds of thousands of fans, he knew that he could sell them. And I think he made about $800,000 in a day selling these exclusive packs.
They do it all the time, don't they? Yeah.
So that is another way of determining your price, is actually sometimes by releasing less to the market.
100%. I know a lot of the big trainer brands, the big sports trainer brands, they do exactly that. They'll let everyone know on their email list, these are the, the next pair of trainers or sneakers or, basketball boots, whatever you want to sort of call it. There's only going to be like 150 of them made, and whoomp, the price goes up through the roof. But they'll all sell. All of them sell.
Yeah, they become collector's items.
They don't even wear them. They'll just be boxed up, stuck in the loft, and that's it.
They become, because human beings are egotistical. They have to own. There's like, the blokes who have to pay millions to buy the first penny black stamp or something. They'll be sat on your shelf in a book doing nothing. You don't get anything from it. You can buy it as an investment for later on. You buy a pair of trainers now at $2,000, sell it for $4,000 later on when the other 149 pairs have fallen apart or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like you say, you create that exclusive and people know about it and they go out and buy them.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing I quite like when it comes to pricing is not if you're an affiliate. So if you're selling other people's stuff, that kind of takes the headache away. You don't have to get involved then. And I think as an affiliate, I don't know whether I mean, I don't know. I guess the question is it easier to sell lots of something for very cheap, or a handful of things for high ticket, almost possibly resulting in the same monetary value? And I wouldn't really know the answer to that, but when it comes to affiliate sales, at least you don't have that headache. If you're creating a affiliate copy or affiliate videos, or if you're going to build a website around a specific affiliate product, the chances are the people that have found your website, your article, your video, your podcast, whatever it is you're talking about, involving and mentioning that affiliate product, well, they're already interested anyway. If they've stumbled across your website, if you've done it correctly, they haven't just found it by chance. They're going to kind of know a bit about the industry, and they've specifically gone there. And then in order for them to then click through and buy that, it's taken out of your hands. I mean, like you say, the pricing is not really, you don't really get involved in the pricing side of it. So in some ways, the affiliate side of it, especially when you're starting out, I think if you don't want the headache, it is an all right way to get started, really.
It is. I mean, like you say, those people are what I suppose you call their product aware, or at least solution aware.
Yeah.
There's like 3 different types of people. And those who are solution aware or product aware, they know that they have a problem. They know that this is going to sort it, and they also know your product's going to sort it. So they've come looking for that product. So they're they've already been sort of convinced already, which goes back to something else I was going to say. Another part of pricing is, if you're going to price something at sort of high ticket, sales letters are generally longer for high ticket items because people will take more convincing. You've got to sort of explain to them why they need to buy your product. If you're selling something between sort of 99p and 20 quid, like I said, they don't need a huge amount of convincing because there's less risk.
It could just be, let's just buy it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like buying coffee and cake. It's not that much of a gamble. But if you were, you've got a mortgage to pay, rent to pay, you've got food to buy, bills to pay, and then somebody sends you an email saying, we'd like you to buy this, it's $1,997. You've got to be really convinced why to buy it. So another thing is, if you want to charge a lot for your products, be aware that you're going to have to do a lot of more convincing. Which goes back to that, you said that is it easier to sell loads of cheap stuff or just a handful of more expensive stuff? A lot of the marketers say that it's easier to sell more expensive stuff because you're doing the same marketing stuff. And also, if you're trying to sell something that's got a high ticket item, it also means that you've got more money to spend on ads. So, for example, if you're running Facebook ads and you're trying to sell something that's at $4.99, if your ads are costing you sort of like $2, so two and three ads, your money's gone. You make a sale, fine, but if you're selling something at $1,997, you only need to sell 1 or 2, and it covers probably weeks worth of ad spend.
Oh yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there are high ticket products out there that pay 50% on stuff like that. It is possible to make $990 commission on products. These massive courses. I know a few that they will do 50% commissions on stuff like that. So then, like you say, the gamble is how much do you spend on ads before you sort of, rein it in a bit. I mean, if you're spending $500, you could spend $500 on ads, and you only need one sale.
Yeah,
and
which brings us to another point. If you are going to sell something cheap and you are going to try and run ads for it, then you really need to have, as you said earlier, like a back-end plan, back-end product. Either you're going to build an email list and you're going to try and profit off the email list, or you've got a series of other books that you can cross-sell. Because I mean, if you're writing fiction and someone reads one of your books, they've come through a Facebook ad, an Amazon ad, bought your book, and you've broke even, but then they go on to buy another couple of your books in your series, then you're in profit. But if you're just doing the one book, then you're lucky if you break even. But
Okay.
if you're selling a product for $4.99, $5.99, but inside the book it's promoting like a $47 product or a $97 product, put you on an email list, then you are sort of making a profit. So again, that's another thing to think about when it comes to pricing is what is the follow-up? What is your motivation? As you said, is it building an email list? Are you trying to plan some profits out of the list further on down the line?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously we go on about that quite a bit, and that's important as well, isn't it? I mean, I think as well, yeah, that should always be the goal. In my personal opinion is even if you are selling stuff, you know, it's 10 times better if you sell stuff and they've bought from your email list, or you've convinced them to join, and then they might have bought some, or they've bought something and then they've joined. Because like you say, that could be a customer for months, years, even down the line, which as we all know is a lot better. And I think that's where a lot of that is, where a lot of the sort of top marketers do their real high end. It's very unlikely you're going to get a, let's say you buy a book, which is, one of the free plus shipping offers that you see around all the time now. So, you'll have a physical copy of a book. All you're asking for is maybe, I don't know, $5 to post it out. Okay. So it's very unlikely that on the next page after you've bought that book in the sales funnel, you're going to see, like a 10 grand mastermind. That isn't going to happen. No. It's going to be very subtle. It's going to be something like, okay, did you want to join our whatever program at $37 a month? If you don't, it doesn't matter to them because you're on the email list now. Over the next 5 weeks or whatever, that now email subscriber is going to get several emails, already written, drip fed in, which can and probably will promote some of the higher ticket stuff. And I think the more the people resonate, and then some people are going to say, no, that's me done, right, unsubscribe, and that's absolutely fine. But some people are going to like what they hear and possibly go on and, buy other stuff. And it's difficult to measure, obviously, whether that is a metric that you can measure over the long term. I'm not sure. You probably can. Someone can help out with that one if you can. But, I would bet hands down that having someone on an email list for a long time is obviously better than someone that just buys stuff on the one hit and then you never see them. I mean, that's the problem with things like Amazon and that. It's great. Amazon Kindle, merch and all that. These are great methods. We talk about this a lot. They're great to get going and build some money if that's what you want to do. And you can make some significant money with Amazon, Kindle and merch and, all the other platforms that they've got. But you never own that. You never own that traffic really, and you never own that buyer's list. Becomes an Amazon buyer. Yeah, that's an Amazon buyer. So then Amazon will promote the hell out of it. You can bet your bottom dollar. Anyone that's bought anything off Amazon, you guarantee you get alerts, you get emails, you get everything. They're very good at doing that. So even if they buy your book for 99 cents or $1.99, whichever way you want to do it, they're becoming an Amazon customer.
Going back to the email, statistically, I believe that they say that every person on your list is worth roughly like $2 a month. Now that's average. That doesn't mean everyone's going to buy something every month. But so for an email list of 1,000 people, technically, depending on how you've nurtured the email list and how responsive they are, but a list of 1,000 names should basically generate you between $1,000 and $2,000, £1,000 and £2,000 each month through product sales. That's what they say. I mean, they also say that if you spend $1, you should get $38 back. That's on building your email list. But yeah, so so you sort of, they should be up to, even if it's 50 cents per user, per person on your list a month. 1,000 people is around £500, $500 a month. That's what they say. Obviously, you've got to keep giving them new products and new ideas and work with or offer services. but that is what they say. So if you can build an email list of 1,000 people, then technically you should be earning at least £500 to £1,000 a month off that. But like you say, with Amazon, you don't get that. You lose that traffic with that sale.
I mean, there are some techniques we've talked about before. You could do a free one. You could give away a few chapters. You can lure people in. You can run sponsored ads. There is ways around it, obviously. I still don't think you can beat your own products. But anyway, I don't know if you can hear the rain.
Is that what it is? I thought I could hear something happening.
It's getting absolutely hammered now, so I think we might have to wrap this one up. But so we've covered quite a few topics there in with regards to pricing.
There's one more, if I can quickly just...
go for it.
It's something that they used to test in direct mail, direct response. I don't know if they do it so much on the internet, but they used to test prices, and they used to send out mailings or emails to certain groups. They split the list, send out 2,000 or 500 mailings, and they would try prices, and they would try several prices, and they would figure out which one was the most profitability. So, I mean, you could probably have more people buying at £97, virtually just a handful buying at £297, but you might have a nice group of people buying at £197, which gave you more profit with having to do less work, as in to send less products out. So they would price it at £197 because that was like their bliss point. So that was one thing that they used to do for testing. I don't know if they do it so much now, but there's another little trick they used to do. And this is an old trick with street vendors. They would often have 3 versions of the same product. And so they'd have like a cheap Casio watch, an expensive Swiss Rolex or something for like 10 grand. Then in the middle, they would have just a nice looking, affordable watch of, say, £300. So a customer would come and have a look and say, well, I don't really want the 99p Casio because it's cheap and nasty. I can't afford the Swiss, but that looks a nice one. And they often do that purposely because they know that they could, most people, kind of like Buddhism, I suppose, they take the middle route, the middle way. And so you offer them the really crap one, which nobody wants. That's not worth the money. That one, that's just ridiculously expensive. I'm not spending that much on a watch, but I'll spend that much on that one. So a lot of the time you'll see sales letters, if they've got 3.
It will say best value or something like that, won't it?
Yeah, they'll go with the best value, and they funnel you down into that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To that way of thinking.
That's the classic one, isn't it? You know, do you want drink and fries with that? I mean, we don't need to mention the company, but we all know that one. You know, that game, which is the classic upsell of all upsells. You know, everyone knows that they make their money on that particular upsell. So, I mean, that's another bit we haven't even talked about. You know, which is the whole kind of. Sorry, my cat's just trying to jump down. But yeah, we haven't even talked about the upsell element of the sort of psychological aspect of it, and you know, that sense of urgency that people put on. There's another thing with pricing that I just quickly want to touch upon, which is the whole using scarcity. Now, I'm a bit of a fan and I'm a bit against it. The reason I'm a bit against it is because I see people talk about doing it and then never actually do it, which really annoys me. And then I'll get, you know, people that, well, and the whole kind of, you know, I don't know really. Is it really an ethical thing to do when you say, you know, this is going up? Let's say it starts off at $25, $27 or something. Let's say we'll use the sevens again. $27, but it's only on like this for 5 days, and then you know, so it's kind of to make people think, oh, I better buy this now, because in 5 days it's going up to 97 or something like that. You know, that's another. It's a tactic, whether you like it or not. It clearly works. It's something that is used a lot, isn't it? And it obviously works.
It is. It works. I mean, like you said, there's got to be some sort of ethical way. You've got to be quite ethical if you're going to use it. It's wrong if you don't. I mean, there is ways of writing it into the sales letter so that you're not so. Basically, if you say it's going away in 5 days, it should go away in 5 days. You write it saying that you're going to get this at £97 before I release it to the general public sometime next year for £297. You're kind of giving it an open ending. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's still kind of, because, you know, people, when they land on the sales page, they don't know necessarily when it was written. If it's a brand new product and you send it out now, then it's great. But in a few years' time, people can come to it and still not necessarily know when it was written. It depends on how you sort of present it. But technically, yes, I'm a big believer that I do believe that if you're going to give some sort of scarcity and say that the price is going up at a certain date, then you honour that agreement.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is, the other way around this is that you don't say that the price is particularly going to go up. You say that the doors are going to close for now.
Yeah, just close it down.
Because you can always reopen the product at a later date when you've gone through that first batch of students. Because that's the other thing is you can say, well, we're going to sell this at £97 and then we're closing the doors on Tuesday because...
Or after 100 people have enrolled or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly, because we've got a lot of work to do with that 100 people.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll open it again in the next year or later on in the year. Because then that means you can open it up and you still actually, there's still an element of scarcity there because if you don't buy it within that first 100 people or that first...
You're out of action for the next year or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that because that as well, if I'm buying something and that's on there, I'm not that bothered by that. I'm actually, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of it, but I don't mind that because it tells me that at least you're going to get some kind of, maybe you're going to get some kind of one-to-one and you might get some kind of, they're not just opening it up to the absolute masses and there's no way they're going to be handling any support tickets, nothing like that. Whereas if they said like they're only going to open it to 50 people, there's an element of interaction involved, then that's a good thing. It goes back to that one that I talked about a couple of weeks back. That I can't remember it. School, something to do with it's like tutoring online, but you actually do live. It's kind of like over a sort of Zoom or some sort of
online classroom
sort of element. Yeah. And obviously that you wouldn't want to open that up to like thousands of people because you wouldn't be able to do it because the amount of questions you get and the amount of actual help you're going to have to do. So I mean the woman, when I was listening to it was on a podcast and the woman was saying she might only do like 9 or 8. It's open to 8 people and that's it. And obviously they're going to sell like crazy. If it's again like we've talked about, if you're solving the problem, if you're answering the questions that people have, and you can package it all together, you can deliver it in say an hour or 2 hours of tutoring, and you price it up for $37, $47, and you only open it up to 8 people, boom, they're going to sell. And that's just that kind of works for the sort of live events, isn't it? The live training and that sort of thing.
Maybe that's what we should do with this podcast. We should actually put it on one of them platforms and we'll just get paid to talk for an hour.
Yeah,
we're teaching people stuff now about pricing, so we're going to do some sort of marketing masterclass. But yes, I mean, it's one thing I've seen used quite a bit, and I actually quite like because then you are using scarcity, but you're also not necessarily closing the product down for life. So you can open it up again as long as you basically say what you're going to say. Then, because if you don't, you don't. I don't know by law if you have to, but you basically can make yourself look.
You don't deliver. You don't say what you said. I know what you mean. Yeah.
If you don't deliver what you say you're going to deliver, what you're going to be like inside the course. If you're basically people are going to say, well, you should have closed the doors. You've obviously done that just to get my money. You got me rushing around. I could have bought it 2 months from now because you've not shut the door. So then you start to become spammy in the marketing world, don't you? You get a reputation. So if you're going to say you do something, do something. But yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we've covered it all. Hopefully the rain it has eased off now. So hopefully it didn't cause...
It was background noise. So
yeah, I'll be able to edit it, I'm sure. Anyway, so yeah, anything else to add?
No, I think we've covered basically everything. We've done testing, we've done the 97, we've done convincing, bliss points, we've done everything I can think of. So no.
Well, I'm sure we've got something. So if we did, and there's questions regarding pricing or how you should price stuff, whether you've listed stuff before or not, whether you've never sold anything before online, then get in touch and we'll be happy to help. So anyway, thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
I've been John Banks. You can find me over at sidingcommand.com.
And I'm Andy Lehman. You can find me over at freedomskillsacademy.com. And thank you very much for listening. And we shall speak to you again in the next podcast, hopefully next week.
Thanks very much.